Good afternoon, everybody. Ryan Leary here from Recruiting Daily. Welcome to today's webinar, the 2019 Essentials Guide to Build an Effective Recruiter Brand. This is going to be a really great session. We have who I consider to be one of the better presenters in the business. He has an amazing story, and he's going to share that with us today. So before we get started, as we still have people joining in, let me go through some of the ground rules for today so everyone is aware of what we are doing. So here's the plan. If you have a question, ask it. We have plenty of time for questions today. On the right-hand side of your panel, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a panel where you can open up the questions box, put the question in, send it in. If it's relevant, we'll ask it. If we can get to it very quickly, we'll ask it at the time it comes in. If not, we are going to gather them all up, and at the end, Andres will have plenty of time to answer all of the questions. Take notes, ask the questions. Today's session is being recorded, okay? Everybody on the call that registered today will get a copy of the slides. You will get a copy or a link to the recording as well. So those will be available to you shortly after the webinar today. So before we kick off, today's webinar is being sponsored by our friends over at Glassdoor. If you're not familiar with Glassdoor, you're probably living under a rock, but they've grown to, I think, just around the top job board in the business now. They are at least number 2. They're right there at the top. So if you haven't seen them recently, go check them out. They've got a lot of great new things going on over there at Glassdoor. So thank you to the team at Glassdoor for working with us here to put this on and bring in Andres to everybody today. So Andres, I'm gonna cut my mic off because people came to hear you talk. So welcome into the call. How are you today?
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna cut my mic, and guys, if you have questions, drop them in. We will filter them out to Andres. But sit back and buckle up. It's story time.
Yeah, so it's awesome to be able to do this. I mean, what you said is true. It's gonna be a story. I'm gonna share a lot of my personal journey, some of the tips and tricks, books, podcasts that I hear, and reasons why I believe I'm fortunate to have a great calling, and we'll talk a little bit about the difference between a job and a calling later. But what I found out is that your story really makes you who you are. So I'm going to ask some thought-provoking questions, and please, as Ryan said, ask some questions on the chat box. So as we go along, I can maybe answer some of those questions, or we'll leave things for the end. That picture represents one of the things that I love the most in the world, which is my dog. Some of you that know me know that Darwin is also a star. So let's go to the next slide. This place represents for me a very special place, right? So I was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia, and this is where I proposed to my wife. It's an iconic landscape in Bogota. There's a church on top. It takes about an hour and a half to go, hiking. There's a cable car, and I proposed to Lisa there, and I said to her, I brought you closer to the stars to ask you to marry me. And, she had 2 options, said yes or walk all the way down. So I think she married me because she didn't want to walk down there. No, we've been married for 13 years, and she's a very special part of who I am, and also a very special part of what makes my recruiting brand is special, right? Everything that's around you makes you who you are and makes your recruiting brand. I had a poll here because I'm curious about who has been to Colombia. Can you please take a little 2 minutes or 1 minute to answer that question?
All right, the poll is launched. So on your screen, guys, you will see the poll. Go ahead and select yes or no. Very basic strategy there.
Oh
man, it's
we got
Yeah. Can you see the results coming in?
I can, yeah. So
Yeah.
we've got some promoting to do here. So when I left Colombia back in 1994, things were a little shaky, right? And my thought of success was around, having cars, a lot of money, travel, material things, right? Because a society where the gap between the high social class and the low social class is so big, you grow up in that environment thinking that success equals to those things. And my mother was actually an undercover prosecutor, so we left. I came to the States. My sister went to Germany. Um, but despite of all of that, I'd love to invite you to go to Colombia because it is one of the most awesome places to go visit. It's inexpensive. Yes, of course, if you go to the bad place at midnight in Bogota, one of the big cities, same as any other city. But right now, the country has gone through a transformation. It's a beautiful place to visit. So all the 95% of the attendees that haven't gone, I encourage you to go there. Let's go to the next slide. So after having landed in the States, I ended up in a place that I didn't expect it. So I ended up in Nebraska. I went to high school there and ended up going to college there. I was a tennis player at the time, so I got a scholarship to play at the University of Nebraska. Played for 1 year, and I think I quit the team because um, playing college sports here it's like having a different job. So, but I always say that tennis was a way for me to achieve that goal to get into school. And throughout college, I started to travel a lot. And one of my first big experiences traveling was a study about program in Japan. And I went and studied there for a year. And ever since I started traveling, I have not stopped. And I mention this because traveling has been the best book and the best way for me to become a great recruiter. It's the best training to become an intuitive recruiter, right? When you are exposed to different cultures, you are exposed to different ways, different thoughts, different people, and you're on the phone with a person or you're reviewing a resume, you can pick up on things that intuitively will let you understand who is a top performer, who is a good fit for your company. And you also can smell the people who are lying on a resume or who are just embellishing their interview. So traveling has been and will always be the best way to get in touch with people. And I always schedule a big trip every year. And again, my kind of travel is not to go to the Four Seasons and stay at a resort in a beach resort. It's more about getting lost and going to places that are exotic, and maybe even if you can go to places where you don't speak that language, the process of finding yourself helps you a lot. Some of those pictures are in my favorite places. Greece. I went to the World Cup in Russia, which was a great experience. I'm doing this intentionally because all of this is embedded into my recruiting brand. If you think about Colombia, if you think about soccer, if you think about Nebraska, people that know me and people that read or that kind of research what I do and who I work for, some of those things will come up live when you understand a little bit more about me. So let's go to the next slide. Another experience that I had during college was to work for Mickey Mouse. And I think it's so important to mention this because in what I do right now, I tell our team that we are not in the recruiting business, but we are in the hospitality business. Um, Naturally, when you are in a place like Disney, you learn how to delight your guests. Cast members are there to make sure that experience is magical for everyone. And what I learned there kind of translated into what I like to say is one of the things that makes our recruiting brand very unique, and that is to treat every candidate in a way that they feel they've gone through a process, and even if they get rejected, that the experience was unique. Even when we had last year 68,000 applicants for 712 hires, even if you can work on those emails and make that experience unique for the person that gets rejected, and the simple fact of actually telling someone that they didn't get the job, it's something that's innate in the way I do things, just because I grew up, wanting to delight guests, wanting to be in the service industry. And I think Disney is a great school for that. I go back to the Disney books that I have frequently. I like to see candidates that come from Disney because their cultures are very alike from our cultures. So, again, think it's a different way of thinking about recruiting, right? When you think about your hiring managers, your team leaders, same thing. They are our internal clients. We should strive to provide amazing, unique experiences for them and work towards not just satisfying them, but exceeding their expectations. So Disney had a big impact in my life. Let's go to the next slide. Then I got a job, and I was working as a consultant, traveling all over the world. My job was really cool. Was going to hotels, doing leadership development workshops, working on assessment tools, working on recruitment, but traveling a lot, right? And remember that first slide when I talked about success and my ideas of success. So I thought I was being really successful. I was, meeting with great executives, meeting with CEOs, traveling first class. And we had a question in one of our interviews that was around, if knowing what you know now, would you do something differently? And keep in mind, this was after a couple hours of interviewing. Some of these executives had their guards down, and without an exception, the common thread was that people would, think about getting closer to the families. People would actually do something to be healthier. People would actually do something to radically change what they did, because throughout their lives they didn't enjoy their line of work. And so I was listening to this executive, I thought, I actually don't want to end up answering the question in this way. So I was finding myself in a place where I was not happy. I think I was being successful, but I was not happy. And I stumbled into this area of psychology, which is known as positive psychology. In 1998, Martin Seligman was the pioneer of this industry, but positive psychology actually started a while ago with Maslow and some of the great psychology pioneers. It's just that in 1998, it actually took form and actually became a field of study. The main difference between psychology and positive psychology is that instead of focusing on studying what's wrong about people, depression and schizophrenia, positive psychology focuses on what's right about people, studying leadership. And this is what it's called the science of happiness. It's not self-help. It's actually a science based on scientific research. And I just love the research found in some of these books. I mean, these books are a part of it. And throughout the field of positive psychology, I got very close to some of the same pioneers. And you can go to the next slide. I went to a couple.
Anders, I'm going to cut in real quick. We have a question
Sure.
that came in here, and I think you're covering it all kind of as we go, but maybe keep it in mind. What is a good plan of action that I can take to help my team begin to build their brands? I cannot afford to have them travel. So I guess as you're going along,
Sure.
maybe, keep that in mind. 'Cause I know you're kind of
Yeah.
answering all of that as we go.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think, you can have people have a layout of what their story is about. Everybody has a story, right? Everybody grew up in some small town in Nebraska or some big city in the Midwest, right? But have people highlight what their story is, and then even if you haven't traveled to a lot of places, make sure that they feel that there are companies that what you do as a recruiter for X, Y, or Z companies it's embedded into their unique story. An exercise that I do is to have people imagine, the perfect recruiting team, the perfect company in the year 2020, and tell the story of who they were, who they are today, and what they will be tomorrow. It's just yeah. So going back to positive psychology, and you kind of going back to that question too, I started to follow. You can go to the next slide. I started to follow certain people, and these guys were the authors of these books. These guys were, accessible in a sense because people who are thought leaders want to be asked. So one of the tips that I'll give everyone is don't feel afraid to ask. If you're reading a book and you feel compelled to dig deeper, find the author and write him an email or her an email. Don't feel afraid of picking up the phone and trying and see if you can get a meeting with someone. Sometimes you may get a response now, but if it's something that is endeared to the person's heart, and if you do your research, most of the time people would answer. So I've been fortunate enough to get close to some of the thought leaders in the positive psychology industry, and I have the picture of Chip Conley there because Chip for me has been a great mentor. And as I was listening to his audiobook Peak, I realized that he had interviewed several positive psychology thought leaders, and he had interviewed a guy by the name of John Mackey, who started a company by the name of Whole Foods Market. As I listened to that audiobook, I became really interested in learning more about this guy, John Mackey, his leadership philosophy, and how he built a culture based on a mission, a purpose that was really interesting to me. And I sent Chip an email. He responded, and we became friends. He's been a good mentor, and we travel a little bit through South America because I was working with some clients, and I brought him close to some of my clients to talk a little bit about his philosophy. My point with all of this is that sometimes your mentors can be really accessible, and sometimes your mentors can be people that wrote something really meaningful to you. Sometimes you may have access to them, but it's okay to have people that you follow or have a topic that you follow, and without meeting them, right, you can still learn and follow their philosophy, which is part of your recruiting brand. I also had the opportunity to meet with Laszlo Bock, who was the SVP of people at Google for a long time. And, again, if there is content that I crave, it's content from the people that I admire as a recruiter. You have to pick your mentors, find people that you want to follow. And even if you haven't met them, follow their philosophy and log the noise from places that, are not contributing to your own recruiting brand. And eventually, I guarantee you'll get to meet him. So let's go to the next slide. And I wanted to also mention a couple more mentors and people that I follow closely that gave me kind of some tips on why being here and why seeking happiness was important. So Sonia Lyubomirsky has a study on her book, The How of Happiness, about the importance of going after the things that you have control over. So her study is around your genetic happiness set. And you can do some more research on this, but basically all of us have a certain percentage of happiness already embedded into us. It's almost like it's genetic. For some of us, it could be, 50%, 40, 30, 10%. But what's interesting about this is like 50% of our genetic happiness set is based on one, and 10% based on material things, things like our jobs, things like our cars, those things that we feel are going to make us happy, and but not necessarily, because the 40% of that pie is more around the things that you can find in a company that will make you happy, the things that you can tell a candidate that are not embedded in the compensation package. These things are being a part of something bigger than yourself, working with people that you like, finding meaning in the work that you do, and being at a company that has a purpose of a mission. So that book for me kind of left an impression, because I wanted to find more ways that I can control my own happiness. And I took an online class with this guy, Tal Ben-Shahar, who taught the first happiness class at Harvard. Again, the concepts within positive psychology are embedded in my recruiting brand. And my point of showing you this is that I went really deep in understanding why positive psychology was an important theme for me to, share with my candidates and share as I was in my journey of finding that one company. And you can go to the next slide.
Yep. And Andres, we have a couple of questions that came in, and I'm going to drop this one here for you. So they asked, do you feel that a recruiter brand is built online, or is it internalized and grown from experience? And if it's grown through experience, how do we share this with the candidates?
Yeah. Everybody has a brand, and obviously if you don't take action by enabling your brand through certain channels, nobody will find out about it. I think first, highlighting your story, understanding what your 30-second elevator pitch, and I'll show you some of the slides on how I organize my own brand and the 9 topics that I always speak about. But the next thing is to take some risk and write a blog. Use the platforms of today to say something about you and what's important to you. Why are you working at that company? It takes a little courage, but your story, and I'll show you an example later, is the most sticky point of content that will attract candidates, potential candidates. Your authentic story, and so the answer is yes. It's organically grown, but you have to do something to activate it. Once you organize it and once you know what you will be sharing out there, it's time to activate social. And now I'll get into this in a little bit. So I stumbled into this place in 2004 because it was the first Whole Foods market that they had opened in Omaha, Nebraska. When I walked in there, obviously I knew about Whole Foods through Chip's book, through the understanding of John Mackey's philosophy. I instantly fell in love with the place. And I connected with the team members that were so happy. I could see the shared faith, the mission that they had. My point with this is that the moment that I walked into Whole Foods Market, I wanted to become a part of that company. So as a recruiter, for you to feel passionate about your brand, about your company, about the products that you represent, about your leadership, it reflects on your recruiting brand. It reflects on when you talk to candidates. They can hear your excitement. They can hear that you are a recruiter. Your job is to sell the company, but they will get through that. And they will ask questions around, tell me more about why you're at Whole Foods Market. Tell me more why you are at the company. Ever since I made it a point to come to the company. So you can go to the next slide. This question for me is absolutely really important. At the time when I was seeking for happiness, I actually didn't know how to answer this question right? And it started to become really clear as I read, some of the findings in positive psychology, and I wanted to find something where I could just answer this question in 2 seconds. You go to a barbecue, you go to a party, you have someone ask you, so what do you do, right? I think as recruiters, we have an amazing field of work, and it's awesome to be able to answer this question in ways that people understand, right? I am a recruiter. I am a headhunter. I help people find jobs, right? But I hope that you think about this question in ways that will take your brand to a different level. You are not just a recruiter, right? When they ask me about what I do, I say I help people, change their lives. I make families happier, because what we do in essence is really helping people find, a calling where they will be happy and they will share that happiness when they go home. So it's a question that I leave you with, and maybe we can get to this later. But it's important that you ask your teams, that you ask your recruiters, what is what you do? What am I paying you to do? Is it just to fill jobs, to put people in jobs, to put people in seats, or to change people's lives, right? Go to the next slide. And this is another key question, right? Recruiters, what is your purpose? What is your purpose in life? For my team, when we set our goals, we came up with this pyramid, with these pillars, right? And our purpose, we started with the end in mind. Our purpose was to provide the best possible service to exceed expectations for our candidates and our team leaders, right? And then we started to work backwards. And so what do we need to be able to provide this amazing service? How do we become great team members, team leaders, in terms of exceeding people's expectations? First, we need to know our subject matter expertise. So knowledge is table stakes. We need to know our teams, our initiatives, our company, our mission, our core values, our leadership principles. We really need to know what Whole Foods Market offers, right? Then we need to work collaborative. We need to work as a team. We need to work cross-functionally with partners. We need to be a team that's recognized for understanding how to work cross-functionally, especially in a company where relationships are so key. Then we need to be a resource. People need to see our team as a mini consulting recruiting firm. We are not order takers. Our recruiting brand is such where when people seek our services, they know that we are consultants, that we are talent advisors, right? And then we need to deliver not just with speed, but quality. Quality of hire should be everyone's number one metric of success. Does it take longer? Our process at Whole Foods Market, I would argue, it takes longer. It takes more work to keep people engaged. It takes more work to organize all of these panel interviews. It takes more work to schedule nice experiences at hotels. But the quality of hire is higher. People at Whole Foods Market stay longer. We have people at Whole Foods that have stayed for 39 years. So those would be some of our founders. But if you ask, right, it's common to find people at Whole Foods Market that have been here for 10, 20, 15, 30 years, because we feel that we do a good job recruiting and take more time understanding our core candidate. So then people stay because they're intrinsically motivated by the job itself, by the company. Do we have challenges? Yes. Do we have problems? Of course. But people get through it because they're motivated by, wanting to be in a place that's healthy, wanting to be in a place that has a mission. At the end of this exercise with our team, we came up with this mission statement, right? To serve as an invaluable resource to all the stakeholders and to create memorable experiences for all. Every word is intentional. We want to become invaluable. So I encourage you to use this slide to maybe modify it, some ways in which we can facilitate a meeting for your teams and come up with your own mission statement as a team and your own pillars, per se. So let's go to the next slide. And for me, the question that's really important is like, okay, we're recruiters, we have a purpose, but why are we doing what we do, right? Ask your recruiters, why are we in the business of, selling groceries? Why are we recruiting the type of candidates that we're recruiting? It's a simple question that can yield in thoughtful responses that will help you fine tune your recruiting brand, right? I started at Whole Foods Market 5 years ago, and I asked myself this question, every day. Why am I doing this? I ask myself this question every year. I ask the team this question, every one-on-one meetings that we have. One of the ways that we have to ask this question is in every meeting, we review one of our leadership principles, right? And we ask this question: why are we doing what we do? And then you can refine and you can find out things that are making our job challenging, but you can always fine tune once you go back to the basics. Let's go back to the next slide, Ryan, and maybe check with you in case there are questions. Okay.
Yes, we do. We do have some questions here. So there's two questions here that I want to put out. One of them were, what are your top 3 recommendations in building a recruiter brand? And then the second is, what are a few things that recruiters can do to activate their brand online to attract candidates?
Okay. So top 3, be authentic, tell your own story, be consistent, tell your own story across different channels, and tell the same story, use the same assets, use the same themes. And the third one is be mindful, be careful, because everything that you share out there is visible, right? So be mindful of that. You are an ambassador for your company. You are an ambassador for what you represent, and with that in mind, you are always recruiting. You're always recruiting 24/7 at the grocery store, at the movie theater, online, offline. So once you're comfortable with the things that make you unique as a recruiter, yes, I don't think there's a way to differentiate your own personal Facebook, your own personal Twitter, your own personal Snapchat, your LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn is more of an obvious way to share, your work updates. But everywhere you go in social, you should think like a recruiter. You should think like this is something. If I'm posting this, it's visible to everyone. And by the way, if I'm posting a picture of my dog, actually this is connecting my candidates to this person who represents the brand, and it's okay, right? So it doesn't take a big switch in terms of what you're doing now. It's just that it may be clear for everyone that moving forward, everything that you do in social affects your recruiting brand and affects who you are as a recruiter, right? We'll get into some of that a little bit later.
So Andres, so some of the questions that are coming in are based around, I think it's more around the activation of the brand. What can they do online to help build the brand to attract the candidates? And so let me just kind of put some of these together. If I group them together, maybe a good way to present the question to you would be, do you feel
Let's go to a
that
slide. Let's go to slide 23rd.
20?
I think I like this. 23rd, 23.
Yeah, we'll slide through. Because so
So
one of the questions is, does someone need to be public in speaking at events and attending all these other, events in the industry to then
yeah,
be seen by
it's
candidates?
fine. So it's fine to skip slide and we can go back to some. So this is a clear example of a post that we did on LinkedIn about talk. I mean, this tells my story, the story that I just told you in the last 20 minutes. It's written in a very concise post. And this was actually old, from when I shared the deck with you. So the engagement, the stickiness of the post was exponential. The emails that I got, from candidates wanting to connect with me, when candidates wanting to connect with the brand, were, so telling of that being authentic in a very easy way, through LinkedIn, through posting this short article. It's a way to activate your personal brand. Now, keep in mind that when people look at this posting, they may go to other channels and see if it's consistent within my own personal brands, right? Um, when I speak at conferences, and some of you that might be listening may have actually heard the same stories. I tell the same stories. It's consistent. When you ask about people, or ask someone about recruitment at Whole Foods Market, they will connect me with that statement, right? And they will think about the guy from Colombia who actually moved to Austin to find a job at Whole Foods Market. So it becomes very apparent every time you tell the story, and every time you repeat the story, whether it's speaking at a conference, writing a blog, or sharing an article on LinkedIn, right? You can go to the next slide, because there you will see the 9 things that I consistently talk about. There is I don't let anything else filter through my channel. That's also when I speak with candidates. These are the things that I talk about: happiness, Austin, Texas, Whole Foods Market as a company, food, Whole Foods Market events, soccer, family. I talk about Colombia. When you come to my office, you'll see a bunch of things about Colombia, because I'm very proud of where I came from. It's part of who I am, and you should be very proud of where you came from, because it's part of who you are, and it helps you connect with people. And I talk about my recruiting community. I talk about, I learn about recruiting. That's an area that I'm interested in. So I encourage you to maybe use, maybe it's not 9, maybe it's 5, but narrow down the things that you will talk about within your channels, and start doing it without fear. I have to confess that it took me a little while to be open about, sharing things about, food and, soccer. I didn't think that was related to my brand, but at the end of the day, it does connect people to who I am, and it's helped me kind of portray my recruiting brand as an authentic recruiting brand. You can go to the next slide.
Yep. So Andres,
Oh, go
as,
ahead.
as we're swapping slides, a question came in, I think is pretty relevant here. How much of the recruiter brand does the actual brand own? And I think what they mean there is, how much of your brand that you're portraying is owned by Whole Foods?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if I like that statement that if they own my brand, and I sign up to be a team member. So it's more the other way around, right? I represent Whole Foods Market as a brand, and at Whole Foods Market we say that we we are we like to work at Whole Foods Market because we can be a part of something bigger than ourselves. You can be your whole self at work. So by being your whole self, Whole Foods Market is I think allowing me to be myself, and that's part of why they hire me, and part of why we hire candidates. So do they own my brand? Sure, they can take credit for it, but I think it's more the other way around it. But
Yeah.
it is very it doesn't have you know lines. And I think something that we have evolved, and I'm going to share this with you guys. I think in the past, it was very common for people at Whole Foods to, you know, ask you to be friends in Facebook. And, we're so organic and, we're so collaborative. I think those lines should be respected. It doesn't mean that you can't get personal with people, but sometimes as team leaders, we have to kind of respect the lines between asking someone to be your friend on Facebook and keep your place as a team leader without not showing interest for their personal life. I was sharing a little bit around some of the things that took me time to share, and yeah, it takes time and it takes failures. I have failed several times in my life. I tried to open an office in Latin America with my consultant firm, failed terribly. I started a company with some folks and selling to college recruiting to college universities. I'm sorry, it's really hard. I failed. I tried to become a spinning instructor, really bad at it, and I broke a few bones. My point here is that through all the failures, I've learned, and it's good to take some risk, take some calculated risk, but write that blog. This is the very same reason why I'm doing this webinar, because it may not be perfect, but it will teach me something at the end, and through some failures, you will get some lessons that will make you better the next time. So you can go to the next slide. Just wanted to show some shots of Austin. Finally, after all of the journey that I went through, I found a job in Austin. I moved to Austin in 2010, but it took me 4 years to get to Whole Foods because they didn't have a recruiting function at corporate. So it took me 4 years to get to Whole Foods, and it's been, worth every minute of the wait. Again, just to showcase how passionate I am for the company, because I've been wanting to be here, for a long time. And once I landed here, I wanted to embrace it. And you can go to the next slide. Whole Foods Market has been great, but also, Austin as a city, it's been a good fit for me. Your brand also becomes your company, the city that you represent. I love, taking visitors here in Austin. Come to visit me at Whole Foods. As a recruiter, you have to let people see, who you are outside of work, and hopefully everything that makes you who you are, it's also someone that, people can see is who you are at work. You can go to the next slide. So this is very important to me, right? When we talk about purpose, this is what I think we do as recruiters, and what I think my brand represents as a recruiter, right? I help people find calling. Your calling is something that will provide you, happiness, meaning. A job is something that will get you by with a paycheck. You look forward to Fridays. Careers are, you look for a promotion. You may throw people under the bus to get promoted, but as recruiters, we always have to audit ourselves and find, ways to be in a calling and not just find ourselves at a job. I have another poll in here because this is anonymous. Please share with me, what do you think are you pursuing in your life? Do you feel like you're stuck in a job? Are you in a career, or are you in a calling where you're really a part of a purposeful company, something bigger than yourself, and you're finding meaning in the work that you do. Let's share that polling, Brian.
Did I get the right poll there?
That's the wrong polling. Let's do the next.
Well, let's see. Don't think I can swap it out. Let's let's go ahead and take the answers here, and then we'll go back to the other one.
Okay.
So we put the wrong poll up, everybody. Apologies on that. All right, so let's see here. We'll give it another moment or two, and then we'll cut this one out. We're going to put the right poll up. All right. All right, good. So I'm going to close that one out, and we're going to, what are you currently pursuing in your life, right? There we go. There we go. All right. So this is the proper poll. What are you currently pursuing in your life? Job, career, or is it a calling? I always love seeing the results come in on the poll live to see kind of where everybody is sitting here. All right, let's go ahead and we'll give it another second. We just got another burst.
Yeah, it's hard work, believe me. I mean, it is. It kind of, if you look at the polls from Gallup every year, it's 75%, 82%. I mean, the number varies, but a lot of people are not happy in their current job, right? So what do we need to do to achieve happiness at work, right? And this is kind of reflecting on the way, you know, some people may feel about where they are right now. You can go to the next slide.
Okay, and we have the results that are up there. So it was 63% selected career, 31% said calling, and 6% called it a job.
Yeah. Something that people will get inspired about on your social brand, you know, and as it relates to your personal brand is, you know, be your own child, you know, dream, be very ambitious about putting big goals out there. Kids, if you think about kids, they're not afraid of telling you anything. They have big dreams. So that's been kind of one. Oh, sorry, we got some echo back there. It's been a good kind of rule of thumb for me to think about the content that I put out there and think about the way, you know, I inspire people to not be afraid of sharing their dreams. So think about who you are as a kid and put some of those messages in social. Let's go to the next slide. I talked about writing, and this was one of the most shared articles, or actually the most shared article that we had out there by a publication. It's actually in Cosmopolitan. So, and he was our previous PR director. I didn't think Cosmopolitan was a good way to talk about how to get a job in a Whole Foods market. And all the things that I'm sharing with you today, some of those things you can find in this article, that find ways to tell people how to interview for your company, what are the best tips and tricks to, you know, interview for your company, do a great job interviewing, and obviously find ways to, you know, find other channels other than your social media to put that out there, because people are reading that. Go to the next slide. When I talked about consistency, you know, I put the same pictures on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, my LinkedIn profile, my About Me profile. Obviously, I want to update this, but if you have a work brand, if you work with a team that has some messaging, you know, try to share that with your social channels and try to be consistent across all the channels. Go to the next slide. When you are consistent across channels, by you highlighting your own personal brand, what you're doing is driving traffic to your main social channels or main career channels. This shows kind of the exponential growth from our own social capital at Whole Foods Market from 2014 to today, right? A big part of this is, due to the fact that people have come through my channels and have found ways to connect to the overall Whole Foods Market company through our own career channels. You can go to the next slide. The best way to audit your brand is by Googling yourself, right? So Google your name. If your LinkedIn profile shows up as the first search result, I think it's good. Check out, what images are out there of you, and do this every month, because it's important that you understand how you're showing up as a brand in front of others. I'm going to go through this slide very quickly. Some tools that I use, go to the next slide, to kind of check to see if I'm being effective in terms of who I follow with my social channels. Use tools like followerwonk.com. I usually don't follow a lot of people because I limit my content to those things that I shared with you in the past. 9 things, right? Happiness, Austin, soccer, Whole Foods Market. So this kind of shows where I'm following people. I think I'm following some people in Singapore. Don't know why, but it shows that, I'm following 49 people. This is from my Twitter account in Austin, and shows kind of the overall thought leaders that I follow. Do that with your brand. Go to the next slide, and then check who your followers are, right? If my followers were not all in Austin, I would think maybe I'm not talking about Whole Foods Market a lot, but it shows that the majority of people that follow me are in Austin. Some of them are in Alaska, so we may have some big fans over there. Anyway, do some audits, use some tools to check your followers. You can go to the next slide. There are some tools that allow you to see, how big of an influencer you are. And when you receive the deck, you'll know exactly which tools I use. I'm not too caught up in looking at this monthly. Maybe I review this, every 6 months. But I'm just curious to see how my social brand is impacting, my followers, and if I'm actually on the right track on sending the right messages. Go ahead. Next slide. And I love this quote because there are so many tools out there to, understand, your metrics as it relates to your social channels, but there are some intangibles that you can't really measure. When a candidate calls you and they feel that you're passionate about your brand, when you shake somebody's hand, when you get a hug from someone, a lot of the things out there can, let's read the quote. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that counts can be counted. Not everything that can be counted counts, sorry, and not everything that counts can be counted. I love that. Go to the next slide. And lastly, everything that you do creates a ripple effect with your brand. It's contagious, right? And I have people who have shared this with me all the time, that our brand is so contagious that even if I say something that may not be as meaningful for me, like it has an effect on someone. So hopefully throughout today's webinar, you walk away with something that you can take away, for your own personal life, for your own recruiting teams, but know that your brand is causing a ripple effect. And go to the next slide. The best thing that you can do is to share this with your loved ones, and to build tribes, right? And this is the tribe that we built. And when I came here as the only recruiter, we started to talk about recruiting as a place to work. Now we have about 22 people in the corporate recruiting team. It's my tribe, it's people that I see every day, and I like to come to see every day as our place to work. So take your messaging, take your personal brand, and continue to build tribes. I am done, Ryan. Maybe we can just leave the last 3 minutes for any questions that you have left.
Yeah, we do have one that I wanted to ask as we kind of run out of time here. So, do you find that talking about your local market and sharing family stories opens conversations with job seekers rather than sharing information or speaking on career specific topics?
Yes, the answer is yes. There are so many ways for people to find out about. Um, well, I said yes because that opens the window for someone to connect with me, so I can connect with them about how to find a job at Whole Foods Market, how to improve your resume, how to um, you know get you prepared to be successful about interviewing for a job here at Whole Foods Market. So uh, helping people connect with you personally will open the window for you to tell them about a job, about what's not in a job description, and what's maybe not written out there about getting a job at the company that you represent. So um, hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, I think it does. So, Andres, thank you so much. I know we are out of time. And for everyone that joined, thank you so much for coming on. Check your email. We will be sending the slides as well as the full recording shortly. We'll get that out to you. And also in that email, we do have some good educational content from Glassdoor on this topic that you'll want to get. So when you get it, just click it. You'll get the document there. And that's all we got for today. Andres, thank you so much for coming out and giving us some of your time. Appreciate it.